Welcome to this week's episode of Cow Daily. You all right, Alice?
Just about, yeah.
It is. I mean, well, before we come on to the topics, later on, the topics we've got this week is basically Elon Musk, etc., and Le Pen and the rise of what they're calling populism now, fascism. It's actual, it's fascism. Say it really, really low. So if you could let me know that you're there in the comments, that would be appreciated. Also, we're starting a bit earlier again this week. I've torn me. It's a small tear, but in me lat dorsi muscle, which is the big muscle like across your back. Oh, that hurt.
Yeah, I could
There,
see that
right in there. That's where the tear is. Ow.
How have you done this?
Kettlebells and running.
Right. Okay.
It's basically the problem that I've got is like obviously I had the spinal surgery, right? And like after a while, you other parts of your body like get like really weak. So I've got quite a weak core. So a lot of the weight's being taken with just the lats at the back. So just a little tear in the back. There's like a kind of lump that's grown over it. I've had it properly diagnosed. So
right. Yeah.
So it's really, 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 really painful. A lot better today. But obviously, if you see his grimace again this week, it's why I kind of got past a lot of it last week because I've got this cushion thing on this chair, which props us up. You fucker! Sorry, there's my first swear of the week. It was honestly, if you'd known how much that hurt, then you'd know why. But it really hurts. It's a muscle that you use for basically everything. So that's why we're starting early anyway. And have you got any ailments?
Yeah, I have. I feel like we're now in direct competition with each other every week when we do
every
this.
Week,
but yeah, so I'm on like trying to stay awake because I'm on antihistamines because I've basically like broken out in hives. I think I'm just allergic to the UK at the minute. I think that's just what's happened. There doesn't seem to be a reason for it. I've spent a week. Just spent a week like on the edge of the forest and just come back yesterday. And I think I am just allergic to modern life. And I just want to go back and be a little goblin and live with the moss and the animals, but without the camping element, because I'm not a fan of that, as you know.
I definitely want to do some kind of like segment on moss coming up at some point in the future.
We will do. We actually have some on. You can't see it very well, and I'm a bit frightened to pick it up because I've been a proper dyspraxic bellend today and I've dropped like scalding hot tea all over myself as well. But we've got some Marimo moss here, 2 little moss balls that live underwater, and they're called grot bags and grouch because they're both
a great
green.
name.
They're both green. So yeah. But we'll do a proper moss segment one time because it's good.
Brilliant, is it? So it's got obviously grot bags is green.
And
Oscar the Grouch is also green. I see what you've done there. Excellent. Could be a school shooter's pubes.
Don't ruin these things.
Well, it could. A lot of these school shooters, they're all done up like the Joker and all that, aren't they? So like, they might as well go the whole hog and get their pubes done.
I mean, they might do. I don't really want to know, to be honest. That'd be the least.
Wonder if you were to send like moss balls around schools, it would lower like some kind of freakonomics sort of like unconnected thing. It would like lower school shootings if you were to hand out moss balls in like elementary school.
They're definitely less dangerous than guns, so you never know. Like
distracting as well, I would imagine. The wonderful world of moss. It keeps you busy for hours and definitely keeps you off like shooting people in town squares and elementary schools.
This is actually true. So yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, I'm good. I'm just itchy. Thanks.
So what's this like a hives type of reaction to England?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've just come back to modern life, and my system's just gone. Nah, we don't like this.
But fully hear you, by the way. Like England's just an absolute joke country, and it's like my default setting is probably about 50% on my way to like having a nervous breakdown before I've even got out the door.
So, I know. Let's crack on, really, because we've got a right plethora of twats to talk about tonight.
Oh, who have we got to talk about? Marine Le Pen and fucking who's the other one? Elon Musk. See, I'm quite mixed on Elon Musk. So, and you absolutely hate him. So, this should be a really good conversation. Like I despise him on a number of things, but I actually really like him on others. So, we'll get through all of the material and then we'll have a bit of a chat about him. I think.
Okay.
But I will save it until then. Let's pull up some Elon Musk business. Seems to be the way to go. Just bear with us. I'm just going to pull up me running order, right?
Yeah.
Like basically we want to start early, didn't we? When I sat down and realized that, oh shit, sorry, that Leter, it is I, Leter. It honestly felt it properly knacks. Like,
yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it together, but I'm in this default setting of like just at any minute, you know. It's been the last fortnight.
I'll do the proper good friend thing and just laugh every time it happens.
Yeah, do that. I'm sick of the whole, oh, you're right. Not that I get much of it, like, but you know, I'm double hard and that, so I don't need it. Before we move on, we've got some comments. Let's see who's in. What we're saying. Slaz is in. I clicked on both the FB and YT notifications earlier, but they never notified me to this live stream, folks. That's the Illuminati. Big Elon's going to sort that right out on Twitter, like.
Slaz, I have never been notified of it once, and I'm on the fucking thing.
Mental, innit?
I don't even know what to say to that.
Who knows? Steve's in. He's saying kettlebells and run at the same time. Very funny, Steve. Very good. Nice way of bringing that all together in this short sentence for us. Thanks. Janine is saying, ouch. Indeed. Ouch, indeed. The worst part of it isn't doing it. It's the couple of 2 or 3 weeks after while it heals up. That's the worst part of it. Anyway, right. Stop knackering yourself, man. Slaz, I would love to, mate. I would. And you know, you've been around for a long time. I've known you long before the cow stuff as well. And I've always liked to be active. And I cannot have a life where I'm just going to sit here and just like go, well, I did all that. And now it's an operation and it's all over with. Sick and tired of it, to be honest. So I'm just going to muddle my way through it. And I'll probably get injured again until I get fit again. But I'm definitely not doing ultra marathons again. So we're good. Ari, Mr. Koo. Ari, F1 SH Minecraft. How we doing? Oh, shit. Sorry. I don't know whether to say sorry or not, but I've got my arm up here and it's not a good place for it to be, which is a shame because this is how I've got to trigger all these bloody slides. Thanks, Elon. Anyway, Elon Musk, everybody. You might be aware of him. Richest man in the world. Richest man in the world who uses rocket and star and heart emojis when he's bought like Twitter. So what it says here is Elon Musk himself tweeted this: free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy and Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated, said Mr. Musk. I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots and authenticating all humans. Twitter has tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it. There's other stuff, but I'll bring you in at this point because I know you're champing at the bit to go in on this fool, so go for it.
Where do we start? Well, where do we start? It's I haven't been on. I mean, I don't use Twitter much myself, as you know, and anybody who does follow me, you know, kind of hoping to see something interesting is probably really disappointed because I rarely log on to it. There's been a lot of, so I've obviously been having a look at it today, since I've come back, and there's been the hashtag running, which is RIP Twitter, and loads of people saying that they're going to delete their account because Elon Musk has bought it, which I'm kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like I'd be quite happy to delete my account, and I probably will. Honestly, it's not because Elon Musk has bought it. I kind of find the whole thing a bit like weird and a bit like amusing at the same time, because he's never fucking off it. And it's almost like, he's bought it because he's been like using this platform. Everybody goes on about like how hard Elon Musk works, but like honestly, he's never off Twitter. And if you look at what he actually tweets, like a lot of it is really, really mundane shit. But I think he goes on it a lot to kind of like validate himself, because he always has a large group of people like, oh, Elon, you're so amazing. And like talking to him like, they've been best mates with him since he was 2 years old. And it's, it's all really, really cringy, to be honest. There was probably the only decent article I've seen about this today was done by Hard Times, which is very, very much a satirical website. And they write satire accounts. And they ran a story saying about looking forward to Elon Musk becoming the co-founder of Twitter, which is obviously a bit of a dig at the whole PayPal thing, because Elon Musk is listed as a co-founder of PayPal, but actually he wasn't. And there's some suggestion, I don't know if that's true or not, that he basically paid people off to be allowed to call himself a co-founder. PayPal existed as another company called Confinity first, and then it merged with another one, which X.com, which he was a co-founder of, and then they merged and it didn't do very well. He was CEO. He got sacked from that because he was basically rubbish at it. But then when it did become PayPal, he still had a large stake in that and made a lot of money from it. And he's still listed as being a co-founder, which he isn't. He's often called an inventor. He's invented absolutely nothing apart from ridiculous fucking baby names. That's the only thing I can think that.
I know nothing about his children's names.
I think it's the youngest one. I think it was the one he had with Grimes, or is the two? I don't really know. Anyway,
I know that his first child died, so I was kind of like, that's all I know about children.
Right,
but it was his first partner, so
no, it's
stay away from that.
He's got quite a few kids. It's the baby that he's had, his first baby with Grimes, that I was referring to. It's like a code or something like that. I can't even tell you what it is. It's just
like ones and zeros or something.
Yeah, it's just something really stupid. Anyway,
do you not want to just call your baby Bully Me then? Because I just don't even know about the future. But like, kids don't change that much from when I was at school, surely.
Yeah, exactly. The thing I kind of like very bitterly laughed out loud at today, I don't know if you have it with you, is the other tweet that Elon Musk has made today about,
which one was that?
Today or tomorrow? About his worst critics, his message to his worst critics.
I think I've got that 2 seconds.
That he's had there, yeah. So he's tweeted, I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, because that is what free speech means. Okay. Well, will he be letting his staff unionize? And if he's that fucking hot on free speech, then this is my thing with like Elon Musk, because we do, despite his repeated statements that he's quite happy for a union to form in relation to Tesla, and is it SpaceX's other company as well? He does go to massive lengths to break up any kind of union activity. Some quite sinister lengths at that. So yeah, I think for a man who's like, oh yeah, free speech, then yeah, well, you might want your worst critics to say on Twitter about how do you feel about a union. And that's the question I'd like to see. That's a question I'd like to see him answer, really.
Do you feel that like he's going to like target unions and organising and that kind of thing via Twitter? Because I did see some people yesterday saying that like Twitter's been the number one tool people have used, like they were referring to the American Union organising, Amazon, Starbucks, okay, that kind of thing. So it's the biggest tool over there for organising in the last sort of 10 years. So do you think he's like really going to do that? He's going to just target?
I've not heard that, but that is an unfeasible when you see the other lengths that he has gone to stop people unionizing. That wouldn't really be the worst thing that he's done, in relation to that. Tesla's got a terrible safety record as well. Really like high rate of like accidents as well, which is, why people have kind of been talking about that. So yeah, actually that wasn't, I was trying to think as to why he'd really done this. That would, that would possibly tie in. I mean, my thoughts on it were that, he's very, very good, and I've talked about PayPal and how he says he's the co-founder of that when he's not, and how he claims to have invented various of other things when he hasn't. And Elon Musk is very, very good at making money from content created by other people.
Right.
So this is what my kind of thought is to why, because what is Twitter, if that, and particularly, and he's obviously going on about free speech and everything like that. And, very, very volatile and spicy and, and outright nasty content, it generates a lot of it. So, this whole thing of, what he's going to do with it, I don't know. I mean, people are kind of saying it's almost like it's going to be a free for all. I don't have a lot of experience for Twitter. It kind of feels like that to me now anyway. I don't know where people are getting this thing that it's heavily censored, that you can't say anything, because honestly, some of the stuff it's why I stay away from it. Particularly when I've been away from it for a while and I come back and look at it and I'm just like, God, this is awful. There is literally no discourse. There is literally no nuance in it at all. But
Sorry, I'm being attacked by a fly, which is triggering like pain because I'm not flapping away. Can you see it?
I can't see the fly. I could kind of see it. Like,
honestly, this is what in there. Carry on anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, we're already seeing Trump and Tommy Robinson trending, both of whom were like kicked off, both of whom were kicked off Twitter. I think Tommy Robinson's came back very briefly. And
let's show you something. Like,
right?
These were the basically what happened this morning. I think it was probably coordinated. Somebody on Twitter was like, please follow Britain First. This is Britain First new account, blah, fucking blah. Within a few hours, account suspended. Tommy Robinson, and I did see his account first thing this morning. Same thing, account suspended. Reason being is they're suspended for life. And quite a lot of people think, oh, well, Elon's bought it, so that's it. It's a huge corporate takeover. It's going to take months of legal to and fro before it's done. So, like, I don't know. He's not said whether he's going to let people like that back or not. But he has been quoted before as being a free speech absolutist. So let's see. Other stuff that I've got in this regard. This is what he tweeted out 4 days ago. Elon Musk, if our Twitter bid succeeds, we will defeat the spam bots or die trying and authenticate all real humans. So that means, like, basically everybody's sticking that. Everybody's going to have to stick their ID in. It seems anyway, unless he's got some other technological blockchain focused thing, which I saw people touting for business on his tweets. Like, there's new technology that's coming. So anyway, carry on. I just want to show that it seemed in context.
Oh, no, absolutely. And again, that can, that's something that can cause real concerns for people. We know, some people want to be anonymous on Twitter and try and hide their real identities as much as possible, just so they can be absolute heinous bastards to other people on social media. Other people, might have other reasons for doing that, which aren't as nefarious, kind of trying to keep themselves safe, from other people and things like that. And this whole thing of, are we allowed to be anonymous on the internet is just, it's kind of, it's part of that. Again, nobody likes spam bots, do they? I mean, it's like, people are going to go, all right, okay, well, that's maybe not such a bad thing, but it's also quite worrying in other ways. And it's almost just like when I've really enjoyed Twitter or other forms of social media, it's just been when you've just seen, kind of some quite funny observation made by somebody else or an interesting, not somebody who's famous, or necessarily like that, just like ordinary people. And you kind of like really relate to it. And it's almost, it's that kind of, you do occasionally from social media less and less nowadays, unfortunately, get that real sort of human experience from it, but like everything, it gets ruined because people are, how can we make money from this? How can we make money from this? How can we capitalize on this really lovely, like organic sort of space that's kind of cropped up? And that's when you get, filled full of advertisements or anything like that. I'm getting absolutely hammered by like werewolf erotic fiction on Facebook at the minute. I don't know what the fuck it's all about, honestly. It's constant bombardment. If anything makes me leave Facebook, it's going to be this.
That's got to be the same genre as Bigfoot porn, surely.
Right, because obviously people say, well, you only get adverts for stuff that you've been like looking at, but it's like, this isn't something that I read regularly. The only thing I could think of is years ago when we did that podcast where I was reading it, and I did end up like, I think I purchased like some like short story so I could read it out on the podcast, and we were taking the mick out of it
for research purposes.
This is the only thing I could think of. But like, I've since been hearing from other bit. I am certainly not alone. I think it's just like, for some reason, I think Facebook now thinks if you're a woman on Facebook, then you want to buy this. But it's like, it's proper dodgy. I mean, the one we read
much like your Pete Townsend defense on the Bigfoot porn.
Yeah. But the one we read out on the podcast was quite funny, and it was, it's just like ridiculous. This is like really disturbing, and it's always like involves like young people. It always comes across as a bit nancy, and it's always got really weird illustrations to go with it. And I keep reporting everyone I see, because I just thinking that'll stop it coming up on my feed, but it just doesn't. I just keep getting absolutely hammered by it. So yeah, again, things like that. Does anybody like it? No. Will we like?
Well, what Musk has said, that he's going to make the algorithm open source on Twitter. So,
okay, what does that mean?
Well, what it means is like everybody can see like what it does, like, and how it works.
Okay.
Which hopefully, I mean, like, what I'd like to know about is this isn't like to just go, yeah, shadow banning was totally happening, and all of that kind of thing. Targeted stuff was totally happening. Shame it's not shame he hasn't bought Facebook, actually, because I've obviously been far more active on there and have been targeted on there. So I'd like to have him spill the beans.
Yeah, but I know, I don't know if that's like in jest. I hope he buys Facebook as well. But like, really, like, why would anybody be advocating billionaires buying?
Well, people have been going on, like the Dalai Lama owned the fucker beforehand. Like, I'm deleting my account today. Have you seen who the shareholders are?
Yeah, I know. And this is, it's we're not talking about Tom from MySpace, are we?
You know what it is, right? I want to point this out about Tom from MySpace. When all this happened, I looked him up. I never had MySpace, by the way. I was completely a late adopter to social media. Like, refused completely.
I didn't have it because I didn't have the internet. So I didn't have MySpace.
Because you were poor. Yeah, I feel you. I didn't have the internet for a long time. So anyway, like Tom from MySpace. What's Tom from MySpace doing? Do you know he's done what everybody should do? I feel if I had fucking 240 odd billion, you wouldn't see us again. This is Tom. You only see Tom when he posts pictures because he travels around the world taking nice pictures and posts them on Instagram. That's it. That's all he does. He won capitalism and went, bye now. See ya. He's not trying to buy everything under the sun or fly into it, or whatever Musk's trying to fucking do these days. But I mean, anyway, carry on. You've clearly got more you want to say, and then I'll come launching in.
No, jump in by all means. I've been slacking them off for long enough, so give a more balanced view.
There's quite a lot of what you're saying, which I completely share. The union stuff, all of that stuff, all of that. What here? I'm going to say some positives about like his activity and then what he's done. Starlink internet, right? I've mentioned it before, but Starlink is like it's basically a satellite dish, but they've designed it so it's simple. You can plug it in, and it's aimed at people who live in the wilderness or like sort of outside of like fast internet. So basically, you can install it yourself on the roof. There's an app you can. Like goes up to the satellite, fastest internet you can get. Well, it's in beta now, but it will be. So what that means is for people's lives, including myself, my partner and I want to live like deep in the countryside, right? but we need high-speed internet. This solves that problem. So that, for me, was a game changer. So you look at it from, like, say if you want to buy a house, right? Quite a lot of houses now, which are deep in the countryside, maybe it's a bit of a wreck and a doer-upper, which is what I want. You've got no chance of getting decent internet. Where we could do a live stream, for example, them 4G boxes, the latency on them wouldn't work. You know, it wouldn't work and be a solid connection like this. Whereas with Starlink, you can get it sent at the address you're moving into, stick it on the roof yourself, done. Or you could live in a cabin in the woods. Or I've seen YouTube videos of people like with a cabin on the top of a mountain, and then they're running it off like a car battery, and it works. Unbelievable. Like, also things like capitalism has become very, 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 very boring, right? Whereas like flying to Mars and that kind of shit, I want to see that in my lifetime. You know what I mean? And I also want to see like flat Earth people take a massive shit. And I want to see like people who said the moon thing was a hoax. I want to see them have a massive shit as well. So I mean, I know electric cars as well, just on his, like, one of his final areas of operations aren't perfect, lithium, etc. I mean, there's like a potential clash coming up with Bolivia, and because they've nationalized their lithium mines, and also Mexico, because he needs lithium for his fucking, like, his batteries and all of this carry on. So, but Teslas, as far as I'm concerned, are an overall win because, you know, they are more environmentally like effective's not the word I'm looking for. What's the word I'm looking for? Friendly than the internal combustion engine. So by no means a perfect person, but he's actively, or at least the people that work under him are designing things which actually benefit your life. Well, at least mine. And also you look at it this way, like in Africa, if you've got a power source, you can have high-speed internet. Think of the game changer for all of Africa. You don't need infrastructure. It's just a plug and a satellite dish and a computer, and you're online quickly. So think of it like this: in 10 years, all of Africa's got high-speed internet, or at least access to it, because of this technology, which will only get better. Think about the conversations that we can have with people who've never had internet before, but have grown up in a completely different environment. Like, potentially the internet could get better because of all these people coming on. Potentially. That's all I've got. That's all I've got. Good enough, though.
Yeah. The thing with the car in space and stuff and things like that, I'm not really like a massive fan. You know, I know when, you know, using internet and stuff and things like that, but like sending a car up and then just leaving it floating about the fucking galaxy, like just like trashing the place, that is like proper just like billionaire bro behavior.
Counterpoint to that, he's designed the Starlink satellites, like when they've reached the end of life, that they'll re-enter the atmosphere, burn up, and just disappear. So there'll not be any space junk coming from Starlink satellites. Carry on.
No, I was talking more about his car thing.
Well, he's dumped that car in there, which is dumb shit. But like, I'm saying counterpoint to that. It's
just like a vanity project, really. You know, I think for him, and those technologies that you've mentioned, you know, they can exist without somebody like Elon Musk. We don't, you know, those things are always produced by people. I know we live in
nobody else is doing the Starlink though.
We need somebody doing that, but yeah, no. I'm still not sold on him. You know, especially when the people making those products are not, you know, are actively stopped from unionizing as well.
And also, I'd like to counter my own positive stuff. Here's some more. Business Week magazine feature: when Elon Musk tried to destroy a Tesla whistleblower, it started with a Twitter meltdown and ended with a fake mass shooter. A former security manager says the company also spied and spread misinformation. Also, do you know about the teenager who tried to get money out of him for, like, he had a Twitter bot which was tracking Musk's private jet. Musk offered $5,000 for him to take it down, but he said any chance he could up it to 50K. So Musk then blocks him. A few months later, buys Twitter. One of the first things that are going to happen, you know, he's going to get rid of this guy, and everybody's going to be like, "What happened to free speech, Elon? What's all this about?"
Exactly. I know the other thing about like the story I always remember about Elon Musk is, do you remember in 2018 when there was a group of young kids, like I think they were Thai soccer team, got stuck in a cave?
Oh, was this when he called the guy who tried to rescue him a pedo and then doubled down on it?
Yeah, like, it was just like absolutely wild behavior. So if anybody doesn't know the story, there was a group of young kids who got trapped in like an underwater cave thing, obviously very limited time to try and rescue them. And like Elon Musk, I don't know what his motive, but it was like trying to get involved in the rescue of this, the rescue of these children. And he like had this like mini submarine or something, which he said, can like rescue them. And one of the members of the rescue crew, like they were part of like an international team of like divers, I think, who eventually did save these children, basically said, look, this isn't going to work. It's too big. It's like over 5 feet long. You don't know the dimensions of the cave. There is like this, literally, it is impossible that this can work. And his response to that was to call him a pedo because he wouldn't let him like try. It was just like, and I was like, somebody who has that like kind of little sort of like control over themselves, it really terrifies me. But
it was crazy, that moment in time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, what are you getting your beak into this firstly for? And secondly, leave the guy alone.
Yeah. You don't, that's not the kind of thing, not the kind of word you start bandying.
Well, there's so many people at the minute trying to nonce each other off. And like, the problem that I've got with it is like, it's just like being liberally handed around. Mm-hmm. And when you come to point your finger in an actual nonce, it's like the boy who cried wolf, innit? It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, what if you're encountering an actual nonsense? Like, yeah, whatever, Elon or anybody channeling that kind of like pedo submarine guy energy, Yeah,
it's a bit grim. But yeah, no, that's we'll just like watch this space because we don't know what he's going to do with it.
We don't. One of the things that I have found funny though is this: the American media, or at least the sort of liberal side of it, like CNBC and CNN. And CNN have been caught recently like lying about all kinds of shit. So people like you can't trust these people either. But watch this, right? No. Have a watch of this. This is I was laughing at this earlier because they're just fucking gutted.
Or what have you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
Look, who knows? I think that's an example of a broader question for Twitter, which is, if you get invited to something where there are no rules, where there is total freedom for everybody, do you actually want to go to that party, or are you going to decide to stay home? And that's a question for Twitter users. Some Twitter users might love the idea there's going to be absolutely no moderation and no rules at all. Others might not want to be anywhere near that. Am I crazy, Matt?
No, you're right. And what happens to the advertising? I mean, if there's no moderation or little moderation, do the advertisers stay away? What does that do to the business prospects for Twitter itself?
Oh, yeah. Let's all think about the business prospect. By the way, the guy who was on the left of him, like Baldy, guess his age?
Don't know. You don't.
It's fine. He's a man. We're allowed. Guess his age.
I'm really bad at this. I don't know. I'd say he was late 50s, early 60s or something.
38 years old.
Oh, shut up, man.
Seriously.
He wasn't.
Seriously. Paper round Everest. Paper round K2. Kilimanjaro delivering the sun. Unbelievable, isn't it? Wow, indeed. I know. Brian Stelter, he's called. He's like some kind of lie bag from CNN. It's interesting.
Right. Okay. So that first point that was made, though, about elections and stuff, isn't that already been happening?
It's already happening. This is what I'm saying. It's already going on. And it's like more than a bit egregious that like people are like, oh, the left this, the left that, and the left is censoring everybody. Like they're trying to say that like Twitter, like this speaks to the freedom of speech thing, right?
Yeah.
They're saying that the Twitter guidelines were designed to be prohibitive towards like right-wing, like talking heads or Twitter accounts or whatever, right? So like specifically around dead naming trans people. That was like a new one that was put in, like trans people as a protected category within the Twitter guidelines. So in America specifically, people are saying it's against like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, that kind of thing. So Musk is coming from that perspective. Bearing in mind, Elon Musk has tweeted pronouns suck. And then Grimes responded to this and was like, I know you don't have hate in your heart, and please stop this. It's like, can you imagine doing your dirty linen like that, like on the internet, if you were like sort of like nobody's like us? But like, what are they doing? Like, what's going on? Like, can you not just give him a ring?
I don't. I don't think he's contactable any other way. I'm kind of convinced it's like that. That probably is like the quickest way I can get to him is by contacting him on Twitter. Yeah. No, I do. I do remember that, and that's the whole thing when we're talking about free speech. I think when I you see some parties talking about free speech, and what. When we've talked about it, I think like we've kind of got like very different angles about that. Some people when they're talking about free speech are basically talking about like how heinous can we be, like dead naming trans people, like calling people like horrific racial slurs, or making completely false accusations or like absolutely vile threats to people. I think, when we've been talking about it, it's been like about saying things that are actually true and not having, not having those things censored. Just being able to have really authentic conversations. This is the thing that I'm finding really hard on social media at the moment, because it's almost like, just post like happy things, post some nice pictures of your pets or things like that. Don't talk about serious issues. And when you try to, and I'm particularly talking about like, in a lot of groups which look at like mental health, and domestic abuse as well. And a lot of the words that are inevitably associated with those two issues, and people can't say it without getting flagged. And that I think, and it's, to get around it, people are starting to like develop this really curious language of like, oh, well, we can't say that word because that gets auto flagged and I end up getting banned, or I end up getting some like weird like pop up like asking if I'm all right. Just to try and give an example of the kind of thing I'm talking about is, and it was a mom like in a group who was talking about her son and what his, before he died, what his struggle, his mental health had been. And she'd had to use the phrase like, my son had unalived himself.
What?
Because she couldn't say the other word, because she said, and like somebody had like said, and I keep seeing this all the time, that particular word. And somebody had like asked her about it and said, because that is a bit of it's, if you don't know, that seems like a really odd way to phrase something. And she said, no, I can't say that word because I can't say that word because it keeps getting flagged and I've been banned, or I've been,
That's
kind of
wild.
getting, concerned things as well. Somebody else who talked about her son's murder, who'd been killed in a particular way, and mentioning the weapon that he had been killed with as well. That was another, that was another one that it was just like, and she said, I just found, and yeah, so the people have kind of developed this really odd way of talking when it's like, for things like that, you want to be able to have, really healing and authentic conversations. And it's just becoming more and more impossible, which is a shame because, I mean, there's been loads of positive things about social media. I've had loads of really positive experiences. I've got friends who I've made and friends who I've reconnected with, which just wouldn't have happened without social media. And
Definitely,
it's been a great way of keeping in touch with people. I've got friends on the other end of the country. I've got friends on the other end of the world. It's an easy way to stay in touch. And as I say, kind of keep that human contact, which, was really important during, particularly during the pandemic as well, for myself. It's brought some like fucking amazing people into my life. And it's, I'd never always thought negative about social media, particularly because of how much I use it. But yeah, it feels like it's just becoming harder and harder. And a lot of people I know are just like leaving in droves because they're sick of being bombarded by advertisements or, getting bans for ridiculous things and stuff like that. And that's the issue with it. I've got I don't think Twitter will do well under Elon Musk, but maybe that's just because of my jaded opinion of him. I don't think he's as great a businessman as what everybody says. Yes, he's rich, but he's, a lot of the successes have been by the people who work for him rather than him himself.
Without a doubt. I mean, from my perspective on it is, just to close this particular section off, is I'm for it, and because the internet is shit. The internet is not. I preferred it when it was a bit Wild West, to be honest. I know I'm speaking for myself, but that's all I can do. I mean, I'm obviously, I'm always going to go to bat against racists and this, that, and the fucking third. But like, we need, there was one thing that I picked up on Musk's original statement, which was, I do believe it is the new public town square, particularly during the pandemic, which isn't over yet, where like Britain has the highest death rate in the world currently from COVID, which is still kind of high. But anyway, back to this. I want this to happen. I like a bit of chaos sometimes. I want to see what happens. Twitter has got, just social media in general is like, you having to think about what you're saying all the time. As you said, it's like it's something that I feel it's made as a better writer in some respects because I'm less F word, C word, all of this carry on. But sometimes you just want to have a bit of a carry on with your pals. But it's the whole sort of algorithm where it doesn't lacks context, lacks nuance, all of that kind of carry on. Absolutely. So I'd like to see what he comes up with, or what he might come up with, which could make this better. I'd love for once a billionaire to actually do some good.
Yeah, I don't see it happening because that chaos he can profit off, because as I say, that's what creates content. It's not the the nice nuanced kind of conversations. No. It's everything booting off, and that's what that's what he will profit off is content, and the more of it, the better. This is my
well done, you all. Sorry, I've just swallowed. Fuck. Sorry, I coughed and then really messed up my back there. So let's take some comments before before I die here in this seat. Right. There's an unconnected comment, but I'll put it up anyway. Paul, and the reason I am is because he's got that crossover the Sun newspaper in his thumbnail. Check out Chris Harbour on YouTube. Moved from London to South Wales and is an 18-acre eco land holding with 6.5 kilowatts a day, water turbine of his own design. Paul, I actually subscribed to Chris Harbour, and I subscribed to him when he had a few thousand subs, and now he's got millions. It's really been great to see. Or at least he's getting millions of views. Really nice bloke, and he's really pioneering that kind of life, that world.
I've not heard of him, so I'll have a look.
Yeah, Jez Hunt, back again. Howdy, Jez. I'm banned off Twitter. One of the ones I'd got was for referring to Musk as a waxy-faced rocket nonce, so maybe he'd let me back on. I love Jez, mate. He just knows.
Amazing.
He knows how to do it.
Jez has been banned probably more times than anyone else I know, which is a shame because he always comes across as really reasonable. But maybe that's because I do think Elon Musk is a wax-faced rocket nonsense.
All right, so this is interesting. Slads is asking a question to Mike and Alice, and I will answer this, Slads, but I really need you to tell us whether your thumbnail's Bohemian Grove, which you didn't do last week. Is it the ritual at Bohemian Grove with the owl god Moloch? It's hard to tell from where I'm sat. Anyway, a question to Mike and Alice. If you were handed ownership of Twitter and some random happening, what would you do with it? Should I go first on this?
Yeah, because my answer's really short. So I think you better go.
Yours is delete the fucker, isn't it?
Not quite. It would just be I'd refuse is mine, because I wouldn't want anything to do with it. But that's not an interesting answer. So I think, what would you do with it?
what I would do with it, I actually wrote down. So if you just bear with us, I'm going to pull it up. And it didn't make the cut. I didn't think people would care what I thought about that. But like, right, I'm just pulling it up. So free speech, define what that actually means from an international perspective.
Yeah,
what does it mean? Clearly set the terms of what that is. And also develop clear rules that everybody can follow. Simple as that. So like we don't really get or understand, like it seems all very arbitrary, some of these bans that are being dished out on social media. Often there's no recourse. So have staff in place where you can actually talk to a human being and have like a better algorithm, which I'm hoping is going to come from it being open source and lots of coders just getting in there and actually like making it something that's never been before seen, which benefits the user, because at the minute it fucking doesn't. So yeah, part of that was improve the process for addressing issues with your account. Like Facebook, Twitter are the same to me. Like you'll try and contact people and you just don't even get a reply or an acknowledgement a lot of the time. So
yeah,
understand that we are the people who are your fucking business, and we're the ones generating the content. Obviously, algorithm transparency said that he's going to do that. That would be basically what I'd do with it. I'd like just let people work it out. Let people have the discussion. I think it's different from when the social media first started, because it was absolutely a complete free for all, which I don't think we can completely go to. But we've had over 10 years of experience of this new thing that's never happened before, this hyper communication. I'm pretty sure from a crowdsourced perspective, there's that much of a user base where we can work this out. And if Musk is what he wants to claim he is, then it'll work better. So that's what I would do. What would you do?
I've already said I would refuse to do it. I wouldn't delete it because that's not great. There's probably people who who kind of like Twitter. I don't use it a lot. And the only time I tend to go, the only thing I find Twitter good for, as I say, sometimes you do get some like just interesting random person making a funny observation, which I'll share. Or we use it quite a lot to send news links to each other, and then you can look at. It's quite easy to look at a whole hashtag and comments about what people are saying, and it is quite, particularly when we're doing this show, it is quite good for being able to look at what a wide range of opinions are. But in terms of my engagement, much although I do like to go on there once in a while just to see what Kathy Burke is saying, because she's a national treasure and I absolutely love her.
Indeed.
Kathy Burke's amazing. So,
I love Kathy Burke. More Kathy Burke in the world, please.
Yeah, she's mint. So yeah, I go on to look at the news, look at what's trending occasionally, and read Kathy Burke's tweets. Twitter would not be good in my hands, and I'm a big fan of saying if you're not the best person for a job, don't take it on. But some people don't seem to get that as easily.
I'll take one more comment before we move on. Janine Harrison, I kind of agree with that. Don't you think, though, that in any community, even virtual, we have to protect the vulnerable? Agreed. Any community for sure, obviously with those individuals' consent as well. It's a balance for sure. And I don't 100% know what the right answer is. All I know is that the internet is social media currently is not fit for purpose in what I assume the purpose is, which is to like communicate with people, build networks, build communities, but also talk about the matters of the day, because it is the new town square. So we have to like sort of view it from that perspective. Now, as I said, I'm not sure which way Musk's going to go, but at least something's changed. And sometimes if somebody does come in and move the needle in a positive way, it can only impact the other social networks. So let's give it I'm willing to give it a try, even though on a number of things, mainly the union stuff, I think he's a bell end. But we're in a world where democracy is basically on its way out. And it's down to the whims and the foibles of very, very rich people.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm still don't have billionaires owning media. It's never a good thing. Never ends well.
you lost her, a billionaire. So anyway, before
give Twitter to Kathy Burke and see what she does.
FO, yeah. Well, let's give him a chance. Let's see what happens. And I know you can twist all you want, like, but you're the Tynesyde's premier queen of anarchy, whereas I'm kind of more balanced than you now. I've grown up, yeah.
You are. You are.
Yeah, I'm the sensibles. I'm right in the center in that. I'm proper sensible in that. Like, that's what I am. patreon.com/cow daily. Become a patron and support our work. So, shall we move on to the next section?
Yes.
So, French presidential election. Really important we say that because it's a different system in France. They're having the French presidential election. In a few months, they'll be having their parliamentary election. So I'll pull up the results first. It lasted a couple of weeks to have the first round and then the runoff. So there was a lot more people in the election than this, but here's the three main people. So something I want to point out first, right? Macron, 27.85% in the first round. Marine Le Pen, boo, 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 23.15%. I think it's Jean-Luc Mélenchon, I might be wrong, JL, 21.95%. Now, why I've included that is Mélenchon's almost, is a bit like a kind of Corbyn-esque, like left-wing figure. And if the Greens and others had just decided to step aside, then it would have been a runoff between Macron and Mélenchon. So, second round happened, and this is what occurred. Macron, 58.54%. Marine Le Pen, 41.46%. Now, I want to point something out for people who don't know who Marine Le Pen is. Fascist. She can dress herself up all she wants. Yeah. Look into like her history and the history of her father. No, I'm not hearing all this revisionism that's been going on, where it's like she's basically just a fascist in a suit. She pioneered this whole like movement away from like the bother boot thing on the street of the far right. Nick Griffin suit on as well with the BNP in the UK around about the same time. A lot of these far right movements realized that if they kind of smarten themselves up a bit and sort of tempered like some of the more spicy elements, then then this would happen, and it has, and it's absolutely horrific. So, next thing, New York Times. Despite President Emmanuel Macron's clear victory in France's recent election, he now faces the challenge of luring back the 41.5% of voters who cast ballots for Marine Le Pen, his far-right challenger, and the roughly 28% who opted not to vote at all. It goes on, and there's a question I've got for you, and it's from @Clive Wismeyer. According to the BBC, Le Pen is far-right. Why is our government not similarly described? What's the difference? So if we can come in from that perspective, why are the UK government not termed far-right? The very people who only last week we spoke about Rwanda and refugees being sent to Rwanda. And we all know what our government's done. We're like, let's call it what it is. It's a far-right government. What are your thoughts, though?
I think it's really shocked, I think, a lot of people in France in some ways. Well, maybe not in France, actually. Maybe a lot of them saw it coming, I think, outside, because I think, is this Marine Le Pen's third attempt at running?
I believe so. And obviously our father before her as well.
In it as well, yeah. So in the 2017 elections, when she ran there, Macron got 66.1% and she got 33.9%. You know, so when you're in the second round, so when you see that compared, she's done a lot better. And there was at one point in this election where it was really, really neck and neck. It like you literally couldn't call it at all. When I've been reading about it, I've been trying to like follow, kind of different people like on social media, mainly French anarchists, just because I love following anarchists for this kind of thing, because they do not have a dog in this fight. They they will very, very critically look at everyone and don't really like anyone. So doing that, when I did that, I think what I was struck by, there was a lot of similarities I saw in our 2019 election as well, particularly say like Mélenchon was like maybe the closest, to Corbyn there as well, and lots of quite spicy arguments and debates online about voting. People say, like none of these people are good enough, you shouldn't be voting at all. But for things like this, France does have quite a high abstention rate. I think it was like over 28% for this one, for that. Yeah, and a lot of, some people saying, well, you've got to vote for somebody, otherwise you're going to let a fascist in, and then it's your fault if we end up with like a literal fascist for doing that. And and them saying no, no, it's not. And I can see both sides of the argument on that one, but it's not. It isn't helpful. It isn't helpful at all. And that's there was lots of protests outside, in France there, and a lot of them were. I think there was one where they were shouting what translates as neither Marine, neither, basically not having Marine and not having Macron is what they were shouting, and then they set some bins alight, which is fantastically French. Fucking love it. But it was this isn't, yes, he's won the election. This isn't a big victory for Macron, and he knows it. It kind of reminds me of Starmer in some ways, in a lot of the, particularly like when Keir Starmer took over the leadership of the Labour Party, he's more or less kind of saying exactly the same things. So I don't see this going well. But the difference is that Macron actually has already been in power. And that's why people are really disillusioned. It's like a lot of people in France are struggling. A lot of his unpopularity, obviously there was he's wanting to do things like raising the pension age and things like that. He's a bit of a shill for sort of like big business. And, a lot of that is kind of what kicked off the Gilets Jaunes, like protests and the Yellow Vests movement in that now. But now at the minute, it's cost of living. People are really, really struggling. So you've got to look at what is it that Marine Le Pen was offering to people that made people vote for her. And I looked at a lot of her policies, and it was nothing's ever different. Really, it's like, looked at it, and it was all about making promises to families. A lot of policies aimed at like increasing birth rates and,
of the white people,
giving incentives, giving incentives for, for having children. And basically, I'm just thinking you're copying Mussolini's homework.
Basically.
That's exactly what is it Orban in Hungary, in Hungary, that he's done exactly the same thing.
Got the Jobbik party with fucking
and that's when families are struggling, that's what people are kind of going to go, okay, well, we're kind of on the bones of our arse at the minute, and she's kind of watered down the fascism a bit. She's not like her dad, but she's just clever about it as well.
Totally.
Exactly the same with Alessandra Mussolini as well. It's Mussolini's granddaughter as well. And the other one, I think, is she granddaughter or great granddaughter? Is it Rachel, who's Mussolini, who's been running as well? It's exactly the same thing. It's just rebranding it and selling you the same old shit. But the policies, they don't really change. They're always, it's always to do with immigration, always to do with have lots more babies, but only if you're of a certain skin color, and nationalism and everything like that. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, for me, it speaks like there's one of the reasons the far right is doing so well is because of the banality of centrism and neoliberalism and how long we've been at this. I don't think the majority of people are like know even what neoliberalism is. They're not very politically literate, and that's what these people rely upon. So it's like this, as you mentioned, Starmer, like prime example. Like Macron's a much more skilled operator than he'll ever be, obviously. But it's the same old shit. It's like it offers no solutions for millions of people living in poverty. In fact, the cock snook at these people. I mean, you remember Starmer's whole like sort of Coventry, like saying it was such disdain, like when he was talking about like the Labour council and the Coventry bin strikes. Like it's that there's definitely an element of that with Macron as well. They say like they're centrists. Watch out for a new term they're trying to use, which is pluralists. There's like it's starting to bubble up now. They're trying to like rebrand centrism. Pluralists meaning, oh well, we like a bit of this, but we like a bit of that. But like one of the problems with centrism is it forgets to meet the needs of the millions of people who have been allowed to become an underclass. And the problem with centrism is it relies a lot on the traditional middle class to prop it up. Cost of living crisis, what you just mentioned there. Macron, EDF Energy is a good one, cost of living crisis. They went up 5%. So a lot of people's like bills have only went up a small amount. And also the French government have offered like financial relief to people as well on that basis. Whereas you see what the sort of far right UK government's done, which is like, fuck you, here's a loan, you're going to pay us back for this. Whereas Starmer and Labour are offering like something where people are still going to have to pay a massive amount. Macron has done it because of the stronger Labour movement within France, and also people like setting fire to bins and whatever. So he knows not even to try that kind of bullshit. So it obviously leads back to this point. What's the difference if Starmer was to get in? Well, he'd probably pull much of a muchness, apart from the fact that like there's no nationalized like EDF Energy. EDF Energy actually operates as a private company in the UK, and a lot of the profit they make subsidizes like what goes on in France. And that's stuff that Macron, if he could, would just allow to do, because it's all about like sort of unfettered capitalism. Like anywhere from the center across, even sort of center left, people are very sort of capitalistic. But that's like something that I feel like we need to like the old school sort of Overton window needs to just be destroyed. Like I don't think like we can say that now, because you mentioned some of like Le Pen's policies. Some of them are actually being like in the French political discourse. What like one of our opponents was actually calling her like sort of a version of Mélenchon, because it like some of her policies looked quite left wing. And she's obviously learned that she has to play to certain people, which I think speaks to the results that we've seen there. Some of them at least, because they say that after Mélenchon, something like 20% of his vote voted for her.
Yeah. And I think, there is a few things that they both had, their views on NATO were kind of similar, but for very, very different reasons there as well. Also kind of neither, but from one, not like a fan of the EU either. But what is funny, I find funny with Marine Le Pen is that, she'd in the last election, I think she'd kind of said, like we're going to have a Frexit and stuff, which is like basically the French version of Brexit, but like this time around has really kind of gone back on that and saying she wouldn't advocate leaving the EU. Now, I wonder why she thought that might be unpopular.
Because, we'll probably come on to this next week. Brexit's an absolute mare.
Yeah, because it's like now the French are kind of looking at kind of what's happening over here. And it's, they've done polls around this as well, because actually leaving the EU was quite a reasonably kind of popular thing, and would have been a potential for a referendum. But actually kind of the kind of general feel for that now, probably because they're looking at what an absolute clusterfuck it is over here, is that it's definitely a lot less popular at the minute. So she's kind of backtracked on that policy a little bit as well.
These people all have corpses in their mouth. They're fucking liars.
Yeah.
Liars. Like, there's only the odd politician anywhere who isn't. You know, Bernie Sanders, America, Corbyn, for their sins. I can trust them. Whereas with these people, I mean, it doesn't matter to me whether Mélenchon gets in or, Marine Le Pen gets in or Macron gets in. It doesn't really matter to us at this point, because for one, I'm white and you pass as white, right? So, like, if we were French living there, then it would be not much different to the neoliberalism of Macron. Now, when it becomes people of color, it's a completely fucking different thing. Because if she were to have got in, then you will see what the work of her father coming into play and what her father wanted to happen. Her father is a fucking absolute racist bastard. I don't believe for 1 second that she's suddenly become some kind. I mean, she did expel him in 2015 from the party, but I'm telling you now, they'll have got in cahoots with each other. And I mean, you also talked about like the children. Well, she's got children, and she's putting them forward as well. One of her children's or family members, at least, is like quite a good looking sort of blonde, Hitler's dream, basically.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of that coming through. So the Le Pen dynasty will continue to recycle itself in France. So, which obviously begs the question: if not Marine, it wasn't her dad. Maybe it's the grandkid who'll be the one, and then what?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I think we could be seeing that happen, that happening anyway, because Marine Le Pen is seeing this as, yes, she didn't win, but she's definitely seeing it as a victory for herself and the far right. She's already turned around and said that. And that, it's kind of that gaining popularity, kind of getting these policies kind of, watering them down a little bit, putting them in a different packaging. And that's all it is, isn't it? It's rebranding.
That's all it is, and all it's ever been with these people.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we fall for it like pretty much every time.
Well, I mean, the 2019 UK parliamentary election's a great example of it. It's like, and when we say we, it's people all around the world. I mean, there's not very many countries which have any kind of progressive government. It seems to return right-wing governments.
So, and I'm not saying this will happen, and I really, really hope it doesn't. But if we are going to be seeing like a rise in sort of, racially aggravated assaults and things like that, even just after, the Brexit, we saw that happen here. People being emboldened, people being emboldened by the result, which wasn't an election. That was a referendum about whether we stayed in the EU or not, and it happened. It happened then when they, whenever far right, parties have had successes in places, you will, I think was it the Isle of Dogs where that happened like years ago and stuff, where it was like race, kind of racial incidents shot up by like 300% or something like that. It's that emboldening, and it's that desensitizing people to fascist policies as well.
Yeah,
and that's what I find. So it's, again, I don't feel, on one hand, I don't feel hopeful. At the other time, I do see people kind of trying to get more creative, trying to kind of organize against these things and maybe look at doing things a little bit differently, which can sometimes be difficult when you're dealing with the likes of anybody who sort of legitimizes that. And sees it as something to be debated, which it is.
Indeed. There's one other thing I'd like to stick up on the screen here. Reuters: France's Emmanuel Macron comfortably defeated far-right rival Marine Le Pen, but will face a parliamentary election in less than 2 months. That presidential candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, French Corbyn, a bit more hardcore than him, actually. He's a bit like, tells people to fuck off on that. labeled a third round of the presidential election. So Mélenchon is saying that this is the third round of the presidential election in 2 months. There's some hope here, right? Because he could, or his party could, like, do quite well. It might be this rebound effect could happen, where it goes more towards like sort of left-wing policies because of the cost of living crisis and the other factors that are like in the world, you know.
Yeah, and if you've had people, you know, shouting like neither Marine nor Macron, yeah, like
the majority of people, it
maybe
seems.
Yeah, and people abstaining, people are disillusioned. This is the other thing, is that we need, you know, we need a different system. This doesn't work. It's what do you do when people are kind of like, actually, none of these people are good enough. None of them are. Like, what do you do then? And then, you know, it's the same old arguments of, oh, you know, if you vote, you're legitimizing these people in this awful system, or if you don't vote, you're to blame.
Totally.
Which is, you know, neither of these things are true.
Neither of these things are true. Quite right. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really, really common. Whenever there's an election, I always end up having this argument, because I've been somebody who's been on both sides of that, and probably will again. You know, sometimes I've abstained and spoiled votes. Other times I haven't. I've used it and had different reasons. That'll probably continue for as long as this system is in place.
I'm not even doing that. I'm not voting again unless there's somebody I can completely believe in. And as you know, I voted in the local council elections for the Green Party candidate and actually joined the Green Party as well, and before Corbyn. But I only voted in the council elections, and I think the EU election as well. Whereas I just feel like we have to change the system, obviously. Like, and that's a fact. But I'm not participating in said system. And I'm going to try and like do things from outside of that and change that system. Now, I will campaign for things like proportional representation or an alternative voting system that actually like is better than this first past the post system. I think a political party could do quite well if they stood on that platform. Now, if the Labour Party did that, would I still vote for them? No, never voting for them again. I mean, you had Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, just today or yesterday saying, I am pleased Jeremy Corbyn wasn't elected Prime Minister. Oh, you mean for the election in 2019 and the one in 2017, which were sweated blood to try and like get some kind of meaningful change through the ballot box. And these people allegedly, released the Ford report, were working against like much. That.
That's
so like
democracy.
So if that's me supporting the Tories, like by not voting, then that's me supporting the Tories. Then fuck off. I really don't give a fuck for this shit anymore. I've been through that many fucking election cycles, and you're trying to tell me that I'm a fucking Tory. Do you know who you're fucking talking to? Like, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
I'd love to see you say that to Rachel Reeves. No, I saw that today, and I thought.
I think we both know I would, and you know why? Because I've done that to many MPs a few MPs in your presence. So, yes, I don't give a fuck who these people are. Don't give a fuck.
No, but it's that illusion of democracy.
I feel all hard and powerful now after I've said all that.
Good. It's that illusion of democracy there, the fact that can do that can be sabotaged, and it's like, this is why it's always, there's never going to be any real change. It's we might change hands of power between the parties the way things are at the minute, but we will not see change unless we do it ourselves.
Indeed. And in the meantime, mutual aid towards our good friends, anybody who's in the shit, like, we've got to do it ourselves. So if that means like what I'm looking at is growing food, but growing a surplus and then just handing it out to the local community for free, good organic stuff, you know. Also, the other side of that is it's like people often can't afford to like heat this stuff. So maybe I'll grow a lot of salad leaves or something and spinach and shit. But that's the situation that we're in. I know in food banks that people aren't wanting stuff that has to be heated up because people now can't afford. I mean, that's not going to last very long. We're only a month into this. It's not going to last very long. Like by summer, especially if we get like a hot summer, like the riots will just arrive because people like, you know, what are you going to do if you're like sitting there starving in the house? I know what I'd do. I'd go out and start causing the fucking scene. I'd go and rob a load of food first and then go, well, like that social contract's gone.
Yeah.
How about we just rip that one up and start taking it to your house instead? I'm not going to sit and starve. Like, I don't think anybody's going to sit and starve. So, like, the people at the top end of society, I don't want to call them the elites because they're just a bunch of fucking shitbags, aren't they? Then they're so far removed from what people like us are feeling and experiencing and saying that they're going to get a nasty old shock if they keep going down this road. And that's not a threat. It's just obviously what's going to happen, isn't it? Like throughout all of history, like at the end of civilizations, mad stuff happens always. And it's so overdue. Like the Western capitalist system's crashed 8 times in my lifetime. And yet people want to talk about stability. That's not stability, man. Like since 2008, we're like how much like of this quantitative easing has been done, where they just pour public money into the private hands. I mean, the worst example of that is when Donald Trump did it, and it buoyed the stock market for half an hour but people knew it was happening, so they just took their profit, and then like all the speculation, the money fell out again of the economy. Yeah. None of that's going to work anymore, man. We have to have system change, and it can start by certain wins like proportional representation and whatever, but it's still Westminster. It's still the French Parliament. It's still all these other places. It's still the same people.
We're still seeing widening gaps of rich and poor, like
without a doubt. We like all of this stuff is just the rearranging of deck chairs on the fucking Titanic. So I hope Mélenchon smashes the lips off it in 2 months' time, and that provides some inspiration that like these things can actually work. Like, and by that I mean like democracy, voting. You know, another thing I would do as well before we move on is I'd have voting done on the blockchain so everybody could see it. Now, it's anonymized, but everybody could see it for all time, like who voted for what and how and on all of that. So we're gonna, like, you know, people are, like, you know, that in the UK they're talking about like you know, you have to have ID to cast a vote, which is going to, like, it's a completely different discussion, but it's going to knock out like a lot of people. Like disproportionately people living in poverty, and certainly disproportionately people living like people of color, because they quite often don't have ID. And as community workers, we know this. It's one of the problems that service users face. So just fuck all that off, and like we can do this all through our phones now. We don't need to be going and doing all that ticking the box now. We'll keep that for older people and whatever, but ultimately we'll reach a point in time when everybody's got a smartphone, or at least most people have. So why can't we have blockchain? Do you got any questions on why on this? Because I think I can just describe it. Like why do you think that would be a better thing? I'll answer that question. It's just because of the transparency of it all. It would bring more transparency. It's not perfect, but it's better than the system we have in terms of the logistics of voting. Like, there's no need for anybody to do anything other than go him on the phone, click, secure thing, done.
It's kind of, that is used for other things as well, you know, at the minute. So it's not a wild leap of technology to be able to do that. But yeah, it's
technology's here now. We can do it now.
Yeah, to do that. We all, you know, and we don't have. I think we don't have an issue with voter fraud. Though that's the thing. This is the whole thing about them saying, oh, you know, we need voter ID and everything like that. Actually, there's no evidence to support this. That's why
it's less than 1% of 1% of people. I think
that's why people
fraud.
Are. Yeah, you know, that's why people are kind of really against it. In terms of, and by voter fraud, I mean by people, you know, people voting more than once when they shouldn't be, and things like that. You know, rather than the votes being deliberately miscounted or meddled with, which is, you know, that's a different issue altogether. There's been allegations of that happening in just about nearly every election we've ever had. But again, like, not a great deal of evidence for it. But yeah, in terms of, you know, the public, you know, misusing their votes, there isn't a lot of evidence for that, and which means there's no justification for the photo ID
Totally, man. I'm very conscious we've ran on again this week, so
Again,
I think we
yeah.
should. Yeah, my back's telling us about it because I was just like, and then another thing, and then my back was like, no.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks. Please comment, rate, subscribe, give a 5-star reviews, leave a nice comments on all the platforms. It really helps with the algorithm, which our Lord Elon Musk is about to make open source for all to see. I love Elon. Where is my satellite dish so I can live in the woods?
You don't even love Elon. You just like winding me up about him.
This is true, but I'm taking a Starlink dish when it's time. Like fucking
You
right.
are a bit more balanced than me. I will admit that.
Well, no, I do see the shitbagness of him, but I've also watched like long form podcasts with him. There's a one he did with the guy called Lex Fridman, who's a research scientist at MIT, and it's really interesting, and you get to see different sides of the guy that isn't just the meme. Nobody's 100% evil apart from complete evil bastards, and I don't think he's one of them. I just think he's like former geek kind of. Here he is. He's done the thing, and he's certainly not neurotypical either. He says that himself. Very interesting. So I would suggest like sort of watch that stuff. You can still hate him, but like I think have a balanced view about this stuff, and I'm willing to give this a chance simply because I think the internet, social media, like more accurately, is shit, and it needs to be changed. So if he's true to his word, it'll be better.
Which you won't.
None of us are going to delete this completely. We're all addicts to this shit, man.
Twitter, I could, and to be honest, after I kind of did. I don't want to go back into this because we're trying to wrap it up. But like, I'd kind of decided I don't even want Twitter after I had COVID. This is before I heard about the Elon Musk bid. Just because when you've been away from it for a while and you come back, you realise how awful it is. And that was my reasons behind it. With nothing to do with that, but there will be other aspects of social media that I will keep because, as I say, it's easy for me to keep in touch with people. Yeah.
True. A couple of comments before we go in the time-honored tradition. So what we got? Jez Hunt, the Elon algorithm. Nice.
It really is at the minute as well. If you log on.
Yeah, completely. So what we got? Paul. What's he saying? No, pass around. Some of my best friends have Jewish descent in the south of France. Fuck Nazis. I agree.
Yes.
Indeed. Definitely.
Very much so.
Janine's saying we need to educate from an early age that politics isn't everything we do and it's everyone's concern. Be it schools, jobs, libraries, leisure centres. Why have we food banks, etc.? Absolutely spot on. Completely agree. That'll do for today. That'll do. It's not the greatest landing of this airliner smoothly. Got me partridge in at the end this time instead of at the start. Anyway, thanks for hopping on with your hives and all. I'm going off to get a massage, which will be nice. With coconut oil with THC.
You're starting to look quite uncomfortable there. So,
mate, honestly, the last 20 minutes has been pretty... I mean, it's been the whole hour and a bit's been pretty painful, but the last 20 minutes, dude, seriously, I'm going to stand up and it's going to be hard. Do you know, even breathing, like I was short of breath because you use that muscle to breathe in some ways. Also, me rib cage is like that. It's like it's collapsed by an inch on one side. It's weird. I just look weird. But anyway, please do comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, Jez. Cheers, Paul. And you, Alice, as ever, thanks very much. And in the time-honored tradition, I'm about to pull up the closing titles. Goodbye, everybody. Down with politics. We wouldn't even be talking about this shit if it didn't affect every aspect of our lives. We'd just be out raving or something. See ya. Bye.